There you go.
There you
What's
go.
good? What's good?
TV Reg.
We're here.
Where you at? Your apartment?
Yeah, I'm at home.
Okay.
Bro, I had to set an alarm, bro, because I was like, if I don't set an alarm, I'm gonna miss this podcast too. Exhausted.
How's your day going?
It's been good, bro. It's been good. I appreciate you for being cool by this morning. Yeah, I woke up late, and then I was like, getting started, I was like, dude, my body felt every bit of the fact that I hadn't been asleep before 3 a.m. in 5 days. But I'd been in the gym all 3 days after. I was sick.
I had a few people say that the time threw them off too. Yeah. Well, just start off by telling everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Reggie Chatman. I'm a sports anchor at 11 Alive TV here in Atlanta, which basically means I get to talk about sports on TV for a living, which is a whole lot of fun. Basically, I cover everything in town between the Falcons, the Hawks, Atlanta United, Georgia Tech, Georgia State, Kennesaw State. I mean, any and everything in town. And personally, I'm taking full credit for the fact that all the Georgia teams started winning as soon as I got here. Georgia won a national championship, and the Braves won one, and then Georgia won a second one, and I've only been here for less than 2 years. So I'm taking full credit because it hadn't happened before then in like 40 years. So you're welcome.
Well, give me a little background of growing up. Did you play sports?
Yeah, I played a little bit of everything. Football, baseball, basketball, soccer. I did track for a semester. There was a year that I tried out for the badminton team, and I realized people are a lot better at badminton than I realized. I got smoked. That wasn't a whole lot of fun, but yeah, I played everything growing up, which is, naturally how I ended up getting into sports media, because at a certain point I was like, all right, I'm not going to go to Division I. I'm not going to be a professional athlete for multiple reasons, but naturally just because it's hard as hell, right? And so naturally what I decided to do is just go into the sports entertainment industry, because at the end of the day, it's something I know I can do, something that I enjoy doing, and I got to stay close to sports, which is at the end of the day what I really wanted to do over everything else.
And then where did you go to college at?
LSU, so Louisiana State University. So, I mean, which was a little bit different from where I grew up, right? I'm from California originally. Decided to go to LSU, a big football school, big sports school. Growing up, both my parents went to LSU, so I knew about the school. I've watched LSU football, and then they had a dedicated broadcast journalism program that I saw that would allow me to actually cover the team and travel with the team at times and be on the field filming and do live shots and anchor and report. And by that point, I knew that's what I wanted to do. It took some trial and tribulation, because initially I wanted to be a team doctor because I wanted to wear all the cool merch and fly around with the team and like just tape people's ankles up. But I don't know if you remember the Kevin Ware injury in the Final Four or whatever year, how many years ago that was?
Yeah, I remember
where
that.
Shin snapped in half. Yeah, it was at that point I said, I don't know if I want to have to save somebody's leg. That doesn't feel like the pressure that I want under me, right? So TV felt a little bit easier, and a little bit more fun, and a little bit less life or death. And LSU gave me a great opportunity, and naturally I got to go there for 4 years, and I worked there for 3 more years after school. And I mean, dude, I love Baton Rouge like a second home.
And then where were you working for those 3 years after school?
I was at the ABC station in Baton Rouge. So I got to cover LSU, and here's why I also take credit for Georgia winning, because as soon as I started working professionally, LSU won a national championship as well in that Joe Burrow year. So I'm taking credit for that as well. And funny enough, the first time I actually came to Atlanta was because of that team. They were playing the SEC championship game against Georgia back in 2019. I remember thinking, man, this would be a really cool city to work in. It'd be a great location to do this job. I mean, it's a cool city. It's big. It's amazing, right? But I thought, maybe one day, maybe by my third job, maybe by the time I'm 28 or 29, and a year and a half later, I was here, which is the crazy part at age 24. So, God will has a bigger plan than you at all times,
And then now the transition from Baton Rouge now to Atlanta, how did you get the new job?
It was a process, man. For people that don't the way that the TV job market works is very, it's difficult, right? Because a lot of things have to go really right, and the timing has to be perfect, right? When my contract was coming up at my old job, I knew I was looking for something. I knew I wanted to do something a little bit in a bigger market, but I wanted similar opportunities where I was covering big teams. Because in Louisiana, I was covering LSU, which is a major powerhouse in college football. I was covering the Saints, which are obviously an NFC South team in the NFL, right? Southern University, which is a big time HBCU, and then obviously high school football and a little bit of Pelicans, right? And I knew I wanted to go somewhere where, regardless if the market was bigger or not, it needed to have at least those type of things. So weirdly enough, this job became available through networking, and people had hit me up about it. And I had thankfully had some connections that were kind of connected to this job. And the timing just worked out where somebody was leaving at the time when I was looking for a new job. And it's just crazy because, this is Atlanta, right? This is a massive market and people don't leave here, right? And most of the other stations in town, all their sports people have been here for at least 8 to 10 years. It's a place that once you get here, you kind of just sit and stay until, something unbelievable maybe pops your way. But a lot of people just stay here. So for an opportunity like this to come available, it was, the timing had to be perfect. Obviously, I had done a lot of work at my old job, getting good enough to be ready for this opportunity. I sold myself really well in interviews. I had the right backing from people as well, and I had put enough good stuff on tape, just like you would if you're going out for a job in sports as well. You want to have enough good stuff on tape, and I did. And they took a shot on me, and I feel like I've done a good job at kind of living up to the moment.
When you were still at LSU, did you do any like internships to get to the first job? Like what were you doing when you were in school?
Big time. And at LSU, I remember the first week I was there. I remember I mentioned that they had the on-camera TV station, right? As soon as I got there, one of my professors, I went up to him. I said, "Look, like I want to be a part of LSU Tiger TV. I want to be part of student media." Right? And he takes me down to the office and introduces me to a guy named Morgan Beard, who was the sports director at the time for the sports TV station, right? And long story short, at age 17, they same thing, took a shot at me because I had put some stuff on tape in high school that like I had kind of taught myself, or I took one class, but really I had taught myself how to edit throughout high school for school projects. And then I knew I kind of wanted to do this job. So I taught myself how to make videos based off of what I had seen on SportsCenter and ESPN. And so I had enough stuff on tape then as well to where they took a shot at me at age 17, and, I could work there for my entirety of my 4 years. So between that, I did sports, I news anchored stuff. I did entertainment reporting. I had my own podcast for a short-lived time. And between all of that, over my 4 years, I got a lot of experience because a lot of people in this job, it's not about the classwork, right? You can take the classwork and probably just be just fine, but it's all about actually having the reps to get the job done. Because when they say, "Hey, you got to go and get this done at a certain amount of time, you got to get it done." Like, for example, it's if we have to do something, which is called like a VOSI, right? We have to go shoot a bunch of video and then get a soundbite, and then write a script to the video, and then cut a soundbite for it, right? Classwork they might give you a week or two to get done, right? For you to go find something, to go shoot it, go edit it, put it together, write it, and send it in for a clip, right? In the real world, you might have 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half. I mean, sometimes you might got to go and shoot it, cut it up, send it back, and within 30 minutes, right? It's just, real world experience is what you need. So Tiger TV offered me that. I interned at a tech company my father was working at back in the Bay Area one summer at Cisco Systems. I remember the biggest thing I ever did, though, and this was something I had worked so hard for. I wanted to go to USC coming out of high school because I knew they had a really good broadcast journalism program. And I knew that ESPN, they have a satellite office in Los Angeles. And I said, look, if I can, get to USC, be part of that program, I'll be able to get myself an opportunity to go to that internship. And I didn't get in, which was at the time terrible, but it ended up working out. And it honestly put a chip on my shoulder that I was like, look, like, I know I'm good enough for this, and I know I'm going to be able to get this internship. So much so I worked so hard during college that I still got the internship in LA. And it was really like, it's been kind of a driving factor for a long time of like, look, if I couldn't get into USC, it doesn't matter. I'm good enough to do this job at any point, anywhere. And I got the internship at ESPN. So that has really skyrocketed my career in a big way. I learned a lot from those people. It's just what it's like being on a stage like that and helping with shows and obviously the speed of it as well, because all it is just the next level of what I was doing in college, and it all helped me to this day.
So break down like a typical day at your current job now.
All right, so it all depends, man. Every single day is a journey at my job, man, because at the end of the day, we have at the base level of it, we've got shows at 5 o'clock. Well, at least shows that my sports department will be in. We'll be in the 5 o'clock, 5 p.m., the 6 p.m., the 10 p.m., and the 11 p.m., right? And then they'll probably run up some of our stuff at the 7 o'clock as well, right? So if we're going base level, my work day probably starts at around 3 o'clock and will go about until, I don't know, probably about 11:30 or midnight, right? Where we come in, it's editing scripts, it's writing to the video, it's maybe shooting video, it's editing, it's producing, and then going on TV at 5 o'clock, and then at 6 o'clock, and then at 10 o'clock, and then at 11 o'clock, and basically outlining everything that we learned. But the thing about it is, like, that's as base level as it gets, because our job shifts and changes 100% based off of what's kind of going on, right? So it's a lot of shifting and changing. It's a lot of adjusting our schedule. It's a lot of just being prepared to one day come into work at 9:30 in the morning, and the next day, coming in at 3 o'clock. And then the next day, maybe I'm coming in at noon, right? And it's all being able to kind of adjust to that every day. And because, for example, right, today or the rest of this week, we've got college football kind of kicking off for Georgia and Georgia Tech, right? Georgia Tech had their first practice today, Monday. Georgia will have their press conference at noon tomorrow, and then we've got pro day on Wednesday, where we have to go back to Georgia in Athens at like 8:30 in the morning, and then Thursday we've got Georgia Tech, who has their pro day, which I believe is at about 10:45, which is a little bit different considering we also don't have to drive an hour to get out there. I mean, this last week in Kennesaw State, men's basketball got punched their ticket to the NCAA tournament, so we were on site, of course, to shoot that, and we did an entire remote show from out there. I mean, everything is shifting and changing, especially in a market like this where there's so much going on. There's always stories to tell that it's always changing, but it's a good gig, honestly.
What would you say is the most difficult part about the job?
I think maybe the most difficult part is just, I think it's the knowledge base, maybe. I don't know. I think this job is only as good, you can only be as good at this job as you commit yourself to being at it, right?
Okay.
Right. A lot of it is, there is, naturally you have to have some sort of ability to speak on camera. Obviously, a lot of it takes reps, but you got to first have a personality to be able to be a personality, right? And I would say that in a market like this, where we've got 900 teams that we cover, right? It's all about knowing everything that we need to know, right? Because I got to be able to speak just as easily about Kennesaw State men's basketball as I do about the Falcons or as I do about the Hawks, right? Like teams that maybe that I don't watch every single time, I need to be read up on and understand, because I always tell people that my job basically is to take a whole bunch of information, understand the ins and outs of the game and the players and the people, and taking a whole bunch of information, allowing it and kind of funneling it through to make it more understandable for people to understand. Because in sports, you can learn a lot or you can know a little, right? And it's just understanding. My job is just to make it more palatable for everybody to understand versus just the super sports fan who watches every single game. You know what I mean? So it's that aspect of it. But I think that, sometimes, I mean, obviously the hours sometimes a little weird. Just kind of adjusting to that. The schedule's obviously a little bit insane sometimes, but at the end of the day, I love it. So it's not like a burden, it's just, and the more that you do it, the more reps you get, the more that you kind of see, like if you're, playing sports, the little bit easier down the stretch it really is.
Now, like you said, you got to cover several different sports, and, you got to know the ins and out, but like you said, you can't watch every single game. So like during the day, are you sitting there watching highlights of different stuff, or do they send you guys like a report on because I mean, I watch a good amount of basketball. Don't ask me past like the sixth man on the best teams, let alone a Thunder, or you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, what are you doing in those situations? Like, because if you got to cover 8 different sports, and you got to know the opposing and the, the home team, like, how do you go about that?
I think what I do is you just have to kind of not constantly be locked in, but like you just have to have a general understanding of what's kind of going on, right? I think that although because I can't sit here and watch every single Hawks game if, you know what I'm saying, let's say the Hawks game is on while Kennesaw State's playing and while Falcons are playing, like while somebody else, you know what I mean? But, you know, it's one having, you know, maybe.
You got to get like Skip. You got to have 5 TVs.
Right. That's the thing. At the office, we have we got 2 TVs that are right in front of my face every day, which at least helps, right? But I think a lot of it's just being read up and listening up, right? I think the knowledge base comes from like, all right, Twitter, I'm always kind of constantly checking to see what's kind of going on. I can get a general understanding of like what each team is kind of going on based on who I'm following, what I'm following. I try to listen to the radio if I'm in the car, at least sports talk radio in town when I'm driving places, because I do have to spend a lot of time in the car, but that's information I can passively consume about understanding what's kind of going on, what's the feel in the I guess the understanding of what is important to this city and what are people talking about. And then it's also just reading articles and just understanding more deeply what's kind of going on, because it is a lot. It is a lot. And then maybe just at times locking in, like if I know I have to talk about the Falcons and I know I'm going on some sort of podcast or something, make sure I'm prepped up and ready to go for that opportunity. And that's really what it is. You just got, and then also just bringing confidence to it as well, because if you sound confident in anything, or if you do anything confidently, you can really get away with anything you want. So I live by that.
Now or at least I think in the studio, you guys get a teleprompter, right? But when you're on the field, you don't get that, right? So how have you got a good routine with like being able to memorize everything that you need to say, so you're speaking fluently and getting that thing down? Because I know like when we're watching the news, they're showing the stuff you're talking about, and you got to be talking through it. So how do you go about that difference? Because I'm sure that's a big deal, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a process. At the end of the day, when you've got the teleprompter, although it is prompting in front of your face, it's crazy how much harder you would think it would be than it is. Like obviously to me now it's more simple, but like if you hop in front of a teleprompter, those words are kind of just scrolling down the screen.
Right.
You got to make sure it's timed up with what the video is. You got to kind of have a flow. You can't just be reading, right? And then you also have to kind of slow down at times, speed up at times, add emphasis to certain words. So like in those moments, it's difficult. And especially when you're doing highlights, you got to make sure you're checking the screen with the words, and you also be checking the video and the timing.
So do they have a screen for you to look at the same time? Like do sometimes, they have the highlights so you can see it while you're trying to
Yeah, so when we got the camera set up, there's the teleprompter. You're looking directly at the teleprompter, which is the camera lens is right behind the words on the screen, and then right under at least at my station, right under the lens of the camera, there is a screen so we can see what's going on the screen at the time, which is super helpful. Because I mean, and especially when you see shows, a lot of shows, these sports shows, they have monitors, of course, in front of them, but it's usually right in front of them at their desk, like right under them. So lots of times you'll see on these shows when they come out of videos, you'll see them kind of still looking down and then looking back up into the camera because they're staring into the screen to understand what's kind of going on, right? So that's in studio, right? But when you're outside of the studio, that's when really your prep and understanding has to be really at its best, right? Because I've always found that one, you need to figure out what you're going to say. And lots of times when you know a lot about a certain situation, it really helps with that, right? There's like probably 3 different situations, right? Where after, let's say at the national championship game where Georgia won it on the field, we're just on the field running around interviewing people live, right? And so at certain times the anchors be like, all right, Reg, we're going to go out to you. They send it out to me. At that point, it's just me describing the scene, understanding what's going on, maybe contextualizing things, maybe calling or talking about certain interviews I had gotten out on the field, and just being able to paint a picture for people in real time. There's also live shots where I know what I'm going to say before. So maybe I've written out a script or something like that to help, make it easier for me to kind of understand. I'll practice it while I'm kind of waiting there. And then if I practice it enough times, I know that I can add a little bit of flair, and because I know what I'm going to say. It's not me thinking about what I'm saying. It's more so, all right, now that I know what I'm going to say, now I can break it down in a way that is maybe more entertaining or more fun, or put my little spin on it. And then there's probably the third way where and that would be maybe a situation where it's live, right? But if I'm on tape and I'm doing a post-game press conference, right, or I'm doing a story that's airing later in the day, it's either writing it down and like writing up what I want to say, or maybe just coming up with it on the fly and being like, all right, I know that coach said this. and this would probably be a good soundbite based off of what this player said. And I know that's generally what I want to kind of do for the story. So this is how I'm going to present it. I say it, I record the first part, the back part, and I kind of think about the planning and the process of the story before I even sit down to editing it. It's like in real time when you're listening to the press conference, you say, all right, boom, that's interesting from the coach. I'm going to lock in on that. That's probably going to be my story is about, and then going from there. So there's 3 different aspects of it, and all of it takes a lot of practice, but you just kind of, once you, like I said, it's all about reps. The more and more you do it, the easier it becomes.
No, we went over the hardest part. So what's the easiest or / I would say more so best part of the job?
Dude, I think the best part of the job is just being able to do cool stuff, right? It's really that simple, right? Because sports are a lot of fun. I like sports, right? I grew up playing sports. I enjoy it a whole lot. And for me, being able to go to these massive events and not only just go, but to be paid and to be telling the story and to be getting the access that really nobody else has, it's unbelievable, man. I mean, getting to fly out to Los Angeles for the national championship game, that was an unbelievable experience, right? I mean, we're out on the field in SoFi Stadium, just hanging out, right? We're watching practice for the team where, it's the team and maybe like 15 of us watching practice, and we're the only 15 people on the planet that are in that moment watching this practice. We of course get to shoot video and bring it to everybody else, right? So it's stuff like that is really cool. And that's why, like, although, like, there's certain aspects of the job, like with any job, that are difficult, right? The hours, the pay, maybe, you know what I mean? This job, if you ask anybody that's on TV, is a grind. But I know for me that, like, I never ever take for granted the opportunities that it's brung me, the experiences that it's afforded me, the travel and the talking and the connections. And I mean, this job has so many cool aspects to it that we get to do. And really, like, I thank God the fact that I get to do it every day. It's a lot of fun.
Who are like the guys that you like study from, that you want to be like, oh, I'm taking notes from what he does. I want to, emulate some part of that.
So it's funny. And if you ask a lot of like young Black sports anchors around the country, and there are not too many of us, but there's enough of us, right? And all of us that are in this field are connected through, at least mostly connected through this organization called the National Association of Black Journalists, NABJ, right? We've got a massive convention that we do every single year. And I consider my buddies that are at NABJ, every time I get to see them, it's really like a family reunion, right? And so we're all around the same, a lot of us are around the same age, but it's, everybody from the Stephen A. Smiths to, like, people that are on my level, or like people a little bit older. There's some people coming up out of college. Like, it's a whole range of people. And if you ask a lot of us, at least around my age, a lot of us will say that we were inspired by the late great Stuart Scott. He was a SportsCenter anchor years ago. And I remember watching him when I was younger.
Did he have cancer?
He did have cancer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He passed away. Yeah. And he was fantastic, man. And I'll tell you the reason that I think he connected with me, and then I think he connected with so many of us around my age, and I'm sure older, and so people younger that maybe have seen some of the clips on YouTube. He was the first SportsCenter anchor that looked like me, that also sounded like me. I remember thinking that he's on TV saying catchphrases and making jokes, and he's not just the upright, this player hit a home run and like TV voice on, right? He's up there like yelling phrases and making jokes. You know what I mean? And like, that's not something that everybody was doing at the time, right? And I remember I've asked people about what it was like for him in those early days, and he got a lot of pushback for it, right? Whether it was from people at in ownership thinking like, that's moving the needle too much, or maybe, the people that just wanted to see their sports anchors just be very uptight and talk about the news in a very TV voice, right? But that wasn't him. And despite the backlash, exactly. And he was none of that. And he fought for that aspect of it. And I remember thinking like, man, if he can do it, I can do it. And that's why I kind of chase after it, man. That's all I say. Exposure equals expansion. If you see somebody doing something, it makes you feel like you can do it. You know what I mean? Representation really, really matters, because if you see somebody that is in your position or looks like you or sounds like you that can do something, then you automatically feel like you can do it too. And although I'm not on the same level as Stuart Scott, I do take a lot of pride in being a young Black sports anchor in a major market like I'm in right now, because I always say, like, you know, sometimes it's maybe we're not sitting here going viral every day, right? I mean, we do the news, we put stuff on TV, we put up stuff on social media all the time. And I always say, like, and I've gotten feedback from it as well. It only takes like one view, one person needs to see something and they can find themselves inspired or feel like they can achieve something too. You know what I mean? And I take a lot of pride in being one of the young Black sports anchors in major cities that is kind of holding it down and being very much me. And whenever I offer an opportunity to bring up the next generation or college kids or just anybody that hits me up on social media, like, I always aim to help, because I've had people that help me out throughout my career, and I always want to give back as well.
Who are there some other guys when you do this conference that are analysts that you see that are like some big time people? Have you met anybody that like you got to talk to and learn anything from?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like those conventions are so insane, because I remember the first one I went to was in Washington, D.C., and I want to say that was between my junior and senior year of college. And naturally, you're watching, like, you watch Sports Center, right? And you're seeing these Sports Center anchors, or you see Fox Sports. You got all these people that are on TV every single day, people you grew up watching, right? And that convention is so crazy because, like, you're just walking around and everybody is just chilling. Everybody is just regular degular. Because, like, let's say you see Stephen A. Smith walking around on the street, right? Mm-hmm. In downtown LA, or if he's like walking through Atlanta, like downtown, everybody's gonna run up to him. Everybody's gonna be asking for pictures. Everybody's gonna be. I actually
saw him in New York, and no one bothered. Like, he was just walking down the street by Madison Square Garden. He's way taller than I thought, but that's how New York is, because there's just so many celebrities all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, especially by Madison, probably half the people probably see him all the time already.
Yeah, because he's probably there all the time. Like,
he's probably
or Stephen A. But that's the point. It's like, but like the guys you see on TV. But that's the thing. It's like those conventions are cool because you can walk in and like Stephen A. Smith will just be kind of standing there. He'll be at a booth, or like he'll be in situations where you're encouraged to go talk to him and just ask him about how he got to his position, or ask him and ask for advice, right? These Sports Center anchors. And I remember that first convention, I was overwhelmed because I'm looking there, I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, that's this person from ESPN, or like this person from Fox Sports, and you've got booths from the NFL, the NFL Network, and ESPN, and Fox Sports, and if like just these major companies, all stuff that you know as a sports anchor that you acquire. I mean, you want to get to one day. I was super overwhelmed like that first year, but then, you know, over the years kind of go by, you start to see people even more, and also it's just like when you're covering sports, right? If I'm in these rooms with Stephen Curry, right? I'm interviewing Stephen Curry. At the end of the day, like, I can't go in there and pretend. I can't go in there acting like, oh my God, that's Stephen Curry, and be nervous and like, you know what I mean? Like, be kind of starstruck, right? Like, I remember the first time I did interview Steph Curry, and like, I remember I was like, just be cool, like, because at the end of the day, you're supposed to be here. Even though I was the player I grew up watching, right? Like, I remember the first press conference I went to at LSU Tigers when Les Miles walked in the room. The head coach for the Tigers at the time, who I've been watching my entire life. I remember thinking, like, damn, that's him right there. Like, he's right in front of me. I can ask him a question right now. But, you know what I mean? It was like, just be cool, because at the end of the day, you're supposed to be in the situation. You're supposed to be in these moments. And I think that's kind of the case with these conferences, where like these people are there and you get to ask them questions and learn. And just the advice you get from them, just about reps and just smaller things you can fix. And then you're getting people's numbers in your emails, and you're following up with people, and you're having conversations. And like, you know, I had my mentor, Rob Parker, who
I was just about to ask.
Yeah.
Do you know Rob Parker and Chris Broussard? Because I love listening to their ring. Rob Parker. A Swiss roll. What does he say? A coffee and a sweet roll? That man is hilarious, bro.
And that's what I'm saying. Rob's a perfect example, right? Because he is somebody that is very him, right? On TV, off TV. And that's what I'm saying. He was just in town this week. And so I got to hang out with him over the last couple of days. We went to lunch and we went out the other day. And yeah, dude, it's cool that you create these connections at these events, and then they give back to you, and you hit them up and you ask them for advice. They'll hit you up and tell you about certain things. You just become peers versus like this unreachable kind of connection, right? It's not Rob Parker, like the da-da-da-da-da. It's like he's not up on this pedestal anymore to me. And like, it's not that he's not, like, he's obviously Rob Parker, so I still look up to him in big ways.
Well, he's showing he's a good dude.
Not,
you know,
he's a good dude.
Could be, you know, certain words in those situations. You know?
Correct.
Yeah,
And he's
I'm
also
Rob Parker. Get the hell out of here. Yeah,
yeah, and he's also someone that you can connect to. You know what I mean? Like I can actually call him and be like, "Yo, Rob, I need something," and he will get it for me. Like, you know what I mean? And that's like the coolest thing ever because he doesn't have to do that, but he gives back to a lot of us.
Did you ever get to talk to Chris Broussard?
I haven't met Chris Broussard. I don't think. I probably have run into him at the conference, but I don't know if I don't think I got a chance to talk to him. That's kind of the crazy thing about it because you'll see him at certain conferences, you see him at different conferences. He's not there, he's there, and it's like. But yeah, no, everybody once you're at these conferences is really, really cool and helpful, and it's really nice.
Well, what's your like end goal? If you have an end goal, but like what's the optimal job for you still, in the same business, obviously?
It's funny because I think my like goals and kind of aspirations changed from when I started this job and where I am now, right? I think initially when I started, I had this my goal was I wanted to be a Sports Center anchor regardless of what I have to do, right? If I have to move to the middle of nowhere to get the reps in, if I have to do this, I have to do that. If I have to just put my groundwork in, because I know that at the end of the day, my hard work is going to get me to the point or the place that I want to be at, right? I want to be a Sports Center anchor. I want to be a Sports Center anchor. I want to be like Stuart Scott. I want to be on camera, right? And so funny enough, like I think over the last what am I in? I'm at closing on 5 years of my career in August, right? Which is kind of crazy to think about. I was blessed right out of school that I got to cover LSU and the Saints and the Pelicans and Southern University right out of school. I was still living in my same college apartment right out of school, just making actual money. So I was basically just a rich college kid in Baton Rouge for 3 years, right? So I really enjoyed living in Louisiana. And then right after that, I got to move here and I'm living in Atlanta, right? And it's another major super city, right? And I think I just recognized that like through experiences of the ride and the grind that I put in, that although I'm going to continue to work harder than anybody, I'm going to try and do my best to be the one, to be the guy, the standard for, I consider them my class, the people that are around my age that are in different cities that I'm competing against. We're all friends, but that I'm competing against. I want to continue to be the standard for all of them, just because I'm competitive at the end of the day, and continue to show that I'm the best of the group. But I think also my biggest goal is just to kind of be happy and in a situation that I want to be in, right? No longer am I like willing to go to the middle of nowhere to like go do this job in an effort to get to another job, right?
You'll be bored as hell.
Correct.
Atlanta's a nice place to be.
It's too late. I've been in two really, really good situations at this point. So I think, I don't know. I think that's kind of the micro level, but the macro level, I just want to get better at telling people stories and just being able to do it on bigger and better stages, right? Whether it's maybe a national market or a regional market. But I mean, dude, I'll tell you, like living in Atlanta and being in this city, the only way I'm leaving is if it has to be a much better situation. Because like I said at the beginning, people don't just leave Atlanta, right? It's got to be a situation where it makes sense. And I don't, it would have to be something like really nice that would have to pop up to get me out of here, I think.
What's your favorite team/sport to cover?
It shifts and changes. I think my favorite sport to cover, and maybe my favorite sport to watch also, is college football. I love college football. College football it's got the right mix of like high level football, but also like a little bit of chaos because like, I don't know, these 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids are they've got the weight of their shoulders on their shoulders, right? Especially at these SEC schools. And shoot, I've like I said, I've gotten lucky. I've gotten to cover Georgia and LSU, right? Who are two of the biggest powerhouse college football programs in the nation, right? Both have won national championships in the last 5 years, right? And then you've got, I got to cover Southern University, which is one of the biggest HBCU programs in the nation, right? I mean, we've got multiple HBCU programs here in town. So I think college football is probably number one for me. But I've always said that, like, when I was in my last job, we didn't do a lot of Pelicans. We didn't do a lot of NBA just because at the time they weren't very good, and it didn't make sense for us to drive an hour out there to go cover a team that, maybe wasn't very good when we had enough going on in Baton Rouge. Like, we did a lot of Saints stuff because it made sense, but Pelicans we didn't touch. The one thing I was super, super excited about when I got this job is being able to cover the NBA. I love the NBA. I've always loved the NBA. the Golden State Warriors are my favorite team in the entire world. So like, if you see me on social media, I'm always kind of being a homer for them. Same thing with like LSU stuff. But I think being able to cover the Hawks has been a really, really cool experience, because although it's been a little bit rocky here and there for the team, and they're on their second coach since I've been here, and there's been some moving and shaking and trade requests and blah, 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 blah. Like, I love covering the NBA. I love being at NBA games, and even on my off days, like tonight, it's Monday. I think the Timberwolves are in town. I'm probably gonna use my press credential to go to the game to, because I can. And although it's an opportunity for me to, one, stay closer to the game and understand what's kind of going on with the team and being able to reference back to it in stories, I also just like going to games. So it's a good mix. I think college football is probably number one. The NBA is probably two. And then I never look at the fact that I cover a Falcons NFL team in the eye either, because that's the biggest, baddest brand in the entire country in what is major sports.
I have a feeling that what I know the answer is going to be, but who was your favorite person interviewed?
Favorite person interviewed? That's such a good question. I don't know.
I thought you were gonna say Steph Curry. You said you such a Golden State Warriors.
Well, so that's the thing. That was a big deal for me. Because that was probably that holds a special spot, just because that was one of the first times I had interviewed him, or interviewed like somebody that big, right? It was a situation where one of my mentors that I had connected with just from going to Warriors games, and I had DM'd him on Twitter one time after like running into him at the game, and he was like, "Yeah, man, like you should come with me to a game." So I got to go to a game. And I asked him something that was like kind of LSU related, because I was still at LSU at the time. I asked Stephen Curry about Ben Simmons, who was at the time at LSU. He's like, and I just remember in that moment, I was thinking, I gotta just be cool, ask him a question. So that was probably a pretty big moment. But I don't know, man. I don't know if because a lot of times it's like media scrums. Sometimes you're getting one-on-one stuff. Sometimes it's running around on the field and grabbing people. And I think that like, it's maybe not one person, maybe it's just major moments. Like the national championship, this most recent one in LA, I was obviously on the field, and it had been years since with COVID and stuff like that we could be on the field, like running around, actually being in these guys' faces after games. That moment of like being right next to somebody and like asking like, yo, like, what does this moment feel like? You know what I mean? To win a national championship. And like, I'm grabbing people right off the field. Like I'm sticking my camera, my microphone in people's faces. I'm interviewing David Pollock, who's on ESPN, to get some perspective on it. Like that's maybe the coolest thing, is although it's maybe not one person, it's just the collection of being able to run around and grab a bunch of people live and send it back to the station and, do my part that way.
I've always wondered that, like the after game press conference, or I guess any press conference, how does it work with the battling of who gets to even ask a question? And then I guess are multiple questions, because I see it looks like people like just screaming and then somebody gets picked. But in some situations, it looks like there's an order to the chaos. So I'm like, how does that work? And then sometimes I just see players say, I like that guy. I'm not going to pick you to ask a question. Like, so how does that work?
There's multiple ways, right? So you mentioned the ones where it feels like just everybody's like hand is in their face, right? There's microphones and little recorders and phones and stuff, right? That is those situations it's really just like, all right, who kind of asks, right? You got to kind of just be respectful of each other, right? Generally like, all right, there's some guys that that are always like the annoying ones that they have to be the first one to ask questions, like da 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 da. So like you kind of just let them go. And then you kind of fit in where you need to fit in. If there's like kind of a pause, or if there's like a little break in a moment, and you actually mentioned like players pointing out people and be like, oh, I answer this person's question, I not answer that person's question. And a lot of that, it just comes with relationships, right? If you see somebody every day, right, and you're talking to them every day, and they're asking questions, or you kind of just, they see you all the time, you have a familiarity with that person just naturally, right? So you're more willing to answer their question. And sometimes the cases where, let's say, in these press conferences where, because you see this person all the time, or this person like maybe writes articles, and like our job is, we're not supposed to be friends with y'all. We are reporting on what's actually happening, or like giving our opinion on it as well. So like sometimes that creates rifts between some reporters and some athletes, because they're like, dude, like, why did you write this about me? And it's like, well, I wrote this about you because this, and this. You know what I mean? And like some people get in that bag of being really, really stubborn in their opinions. So. And then you mentioned like sometimes it's really organized, right? If they're up on like a real press conference set and they've got the microphone sitting in front of them, lots of times they have somebody that's in there that is in charge of like pointing to the next person that's kind of get to go. And it's just raising your hand and kind of hoping. So it's like, I don't know. It's a balance because like you just kind of got to feel it out and be in those rooms. And then lots of times, man, I'll tell you this, like sometimes I feel like people ask questions just to be asking questions. Like sometimes like I have a specific question I want to ask, but because some guy asked the same question somebody did 2 questions ago, but just in a different way because they want to
I was just about to ask that.
It's the worst, man, because we only have a limited
Do you
amount
have
of
a
time.
second one? Do you have a second one prepared as a backup, knowing someone may steal the question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, and I mean, it's sometimes it's just figuring out on the fly. Because at the end of the day, like if I know like if I want to ask a specific question about something, and the person right before me answers it, I'll just be like, all right, well, I'll just come up with something else, and like you know what I'm saying, because there's obviously different storylines every game. It's never usually that bad where you've got like one singular thing. If I don't ask this question, I'm done for, right? But if they ask it, they ask it before me, and I still get called on the next question, I'll just come up with something on the fly. I'll be like, man, so like, you know, so naturally you're out there 32 minutes tonight, you know, you fit, you know what I mean? You start coming up with stuff to come up with questions that you just like shoot at them, you know what I mean? So I don't know. You can always go the emotional angle as well and be like, yo, how did it feel when da 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 da? Maybe something small that you noticed that maybe somebody else did. So I don't know. There's ways around
it. Have you ever dealt with any difficult players that you could tell didn't really want to ask questions, but your boss is like, you need to get something out of them? Like, how did you approach that situation?
Dude, I think the might be the most difficult press conference that I've been a part of was, or really the most difficult media scrum after a game was the Saints in the NFC Championship game against the Rams, or maybe it was the NFC divisional round against the Rams some years ago, where they had the Nola no call, where there was that pass interference call that just didn't get called. That was super, super blatant, right? Which would have given the Saints 15 yards, a first down, and it would have hit a field goal to go to the to move ahead in the playoffs, right? That was probably the most difficult press conference I've ever seen or anything like that, because they were just kind of a cooling effect. Nobody wanted to talk, right? And all these guys are just so disappointed, so sad, like. But like at the end of the day, you still have to kind of answer questions, right? Somebody's, like, you know what I mean? Like they're being paid to do their job, and then also at the end of the day, there is rules that say that you know certain ones have to talk, or like
you gotta answer.
Yeah, like you, or at least you got to kind of stand there and be ready. Or you can escape. Like sometimes, like some of these guys will just dip out before the media gets in, right? Some people we just never see. So like Lou Williams, we haven't interviewed. Like he's, you know, he doesn't play him, but we didn't see Lou Williams for the entire of last season, not once. Like we didn't interview him one time, but he's just, you know, he's a veteran, so he can kind of get away with it. So yeah, that one was probably difficult just because they were sad. But I think, you know, what I'm thinking about it, the most difficult one was probably because these are college kids. When I covered LSU's run to the Sweet 16. Back in what was that, 2019? We're out there in Washington D.C. and they lost after having this amazing season. And I mean, it's difficult when you got kids in there crying and like this is the end of their college career. They've been with their brothers, and you know they're only, you know, a lot of these kids are 18, 19, 20 years old, right? So I mean, this is just the saddest moment ever. But you got to go in there in the locker room and be like, hey man, look.
So why'd you do that catch?
Man, look, you dropped that pass, but I'm not, like, you know what I'm saying? But the thing about it, you got to kind of find a balance of like asking the question of like, all right, like you got to ask in a respectful way to try and get your answer, but like, because you don't want them to shut down on you, because at the end of the day, they are kids, they are humans, and everybody's human. You want to treat people with respect. So those moments are difficult. And I'll tell you, man, honestly, truly, those moments are fine because, like, at the end of the day, nobody's died, right? Everybody's okay. It's just they're sad because of the game, right? But I always say, like, I think that's the biggest reason I went into sports media instead of like news media, because there's a big difference between going to a press conference after a college basketball team loses in the Sweet 16 and they're sad about it, but they'll be okay, versus like going to track down somebody's mother whose son got shot somewhere, right? It's a very sizable difference, which is why
you got to be like reading that shit like it's nothing wrong.
Like nothing's wrong.
30 killed. Like what?
And I just feel too much for people. I don't have that in me, right? Maybe I could read it if I just had it, but I
was gonna ask that. Do you think you always want to, like, no matter what, that, like, even if it was a great situation, you take a, like, probably just pay wise, be like, I'll take a little less to keep just doing sports. I don't want to be on Good Morning America, that type of stuff, or, you know, Fox News reporting on Donald Trump versus Biden and all that, you know, like.
I think that it would have to be like really just like if it was like a cushy job where I had to just come in and like read, right?
Yeah.
Like and just read the news. Like if I was just a news anchor and I come in, I read the news. I maybe I check my scripts when I'm not producing. Like if it was like a cushy situation like that, I'd probably do it. Like
maybe that Don Lemon money, that Don Lemon CNN money,
exactly.
Be in New
like,
York,
you know,
yeah.
it is what it is at that point, right?
Be like, can I get a sports segment every once in a while? But otherwise,
right.
you know, I'm good.
Right. Exactly. But don't
I
don't think I could consistently be the one who's like, hey, Reg, like there's a house fire, go track it down, right? Or like, hey, there's a hurricane. Like, go find the displaced and ask them how they're doing. Like, obviously they're doing poorly. Right. Like, I couldn't do that. Like, not every day.
Money to chase no hurricanes, right?
No, I would take lessons.
Tornado. You want to be that tornado watch dude?
I'm good. And the funny thing is, in Baton Rouge, I did cover a hurricane a couple of times, and those are it's terrible, but like those days are always fun because like I would get to drive around in the rain, and I'm just da 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 da. They wouldn't send me to anything crazy, but they'd send me to like, hey, they're sheltering dogs. Can you go see how the dog shelter is doing? I'd be like, great. But then one time they sent me to a house fire one time, and I was like, one. How do you have a house fire the day of a hurricane? Like how does that happen? And I get there and apparently they had fallen asleep. They had left something on their stove and that stuff just kind of got burned. The house was burning, right? They got everybody out. But then I'm out there like explaining the scene, whatever, and like the dad of the girl whose house like kind of caught on fire. He's like, hey man, you did a good job. I just saw you live. Look, you want to talk to her? Like, you know what I'm saying? It was her house. Like, I'm sure she'd want to talk to you. I'm like, yeah, I guess. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm okay with that. I think it'd be good. So I call the station. I let them know. I'm like, hey, I'm about to interview the person whose house got caught on fire. And they're like, okay, great. We're gonna send it back out to you in about 30 seconds. I was like, great. And at the time I'm looking, I see the dad talking to his daughter. And then I see her get up like quickly out of her seat and like start kind of storming over towards me. I'm like, oh, great. She's super interested in being in the story. Fantastic. She comes over and cusses me out like crazy. She's like, I can't believe you come over here and you want to make money off of us and our da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You're the scum of the earth. This, that, and the other. I'm getting cussed out. I'm like, I'm just a sports guy. I don't need to.
It's not my fault. You left the pizza rolls in the microwave too long.
It's not my point. You was drunk, and it's not my fault. You fell asleep on the couch or whatever. So they had to pull her like away from me, and I was like, okay, all right. And then the dad was like, hey man, look, that's my bad. I thought she'd be okay with it. I was like, yeah. She wasn't.
Probably because she didn't want to be shown how dumb she was on national TV.
Correct. But hey, look, but that's always easier than, you know what I'm saying, more death instruction. I stay in my sports lane and do what I do.
So where can people find you on the actual network? Like you said, the times are what again? Like when are you guys on?
Yeah, so you can find us. We've got two stations, right? We've got 11 Alive, which is the local NBC station in Atlanta, which actually spreads out about an hour and a half, 2 hours outside of the individual city. So if you're anywhere close, you could probably catch us on 11 Alive, 11alive.com, 11 Live app. And then we also have a second channel called the WATL, which is another channel if you're just on cable TV. And you can find it usually on TV Wednesday through Sunday at usually about 6:20, 10:20 or 10:50, and then like 11:15. And then sometimes at 5 o'clock and around 5:15. But I'll say this, I think the best way to kind of like catch or find what I got going on is just find me on social media, because at the end of the day, that's kind of how things are kind of moving and shaking. If you can't catch it live, if you can't stream it on Roku or on the website or on your smart TV, like I try to post everything I have on my social medias as well. So you can find me at Reggie Chatman, just REGGIE CHATMAN, and yeah, it's good to go.
And then do you guys post stuff on 11 Alive? Like, is there an Instagram too?
Yes, there's a YouTube account. We actually have over 1 million subscribers on there, I learned recently, which is really cool. Wow, so yeah, okay. a lot of our stuff goes on there. Like all of our new stuff goes on there, and some of our sports stuff goes on there. It depends because there's rules with the NFL and college football and like who owns the rights to video, whether we shot it or not. So sometimes stuff, maybe they can't post there, but
don't put no music on it too. You're gonna get double copyright infringement.
but if you you know what I'm saying, if you're not making money off of it, so like that's why I'll post stuff on my Instagram or like on my Twitter, or even on my personal YouTube account, just because I'm not making money off of it, I'm not monetizing it, they're not going to come after me. So if you want to see my stuff, you can always find it all over my social media. So.
Well, man, it was awesome interviewing you. You know, even though I'm gonna see you probably tomorrow morning, but yeah,
Yep.
it was good talking to you again. We're finally having you on. When you get a chance, either today or tomorrow, send me like a good like profile pic of you, and then just like a quick little like 1 to 2 sentence bio. So I'll make a little post on social media, and then I'll put the audio version on that app I was talking about, the Anchor app, and then I'll also put I'll probably put the Zoom version for the video version like on YouTube or whatever. So.
Perfect. Yeah, man. Well, I can do that. Yeah, just let me know. I got you.
Okay. All right, brother. I'll see you in a few hours, I guess.
Yep. Well, see, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Yeah, something like that.
We got deadlifts tomorrow, baby. Let's get it.
Yes, sir.
I'll see you.
All right, bro. Peace.